The click of the mouse was wet. Sticky, maybe. I had sweated through the damn mousepad 3 nights running, and the AC unit in the window sounded like a dying robot gargling gravel. It was 3:41 a.m. Tuesday. The air in the kitchen hung thick and greasy, smelling vaguely of microwaved popcorn from yesterday's disaster lunch and the industrial-strength coffee I'd brewed 6 hours ago that was now cold and bitter enough to strip paint off a cheap motel wall. I sat hunched over the counter, using a stack of tax documents as a monitor stand, my neck locked up tight as a rusted bolt. The floor was cold beneath my cheap Dollar General flip-flops. I didn't dare turn on the overhead light. Not when the kids were finally quiet. My workstation was a battlefield. A half-empty bag of stale Cheetos crumbs dusted the keyboard. The laptop screen cast a blue, sharp light on the water-stained Formica countertop, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stale air. I was processing orders for Mom Life merch, which was just a fancy way of saying I printed snarky quotes about wine and exhaustion onto cheap cotton t-shirts and mugs. "You got this, Mama." That was the big seller this week. Irony was the only thing paying the electric bill. I pinched the bridge of my nose. The headache was tunneling behind my left eye, the kind that starts sharp and then dulls into a throbbing misery that you just learn to live with. My eyelids felt sandpaper rough. I'd been up since 5 a.m. yesterday, dealing with kindergarten drop-off, the middle schooler's lice scare, and the baby deciding that sleep was an optional activity reserved only for the weak. Now, I had 67 custom orders to finish designing, printing labels for 42 boxes that needed to go out by noon, and 3 emails complaining about shipping delays that weren't even my fault. I typed the tracking number into the USPS site. The numbers swam. God, I hated this part. The logistics. The endless, grinding numbers that never added up to enough. I leaned back, stretching my spine until it popped loudly, a sound like dry twigs snapping. I rubbed the deep groove the cheap plastic office chair had dug into my thigh. My denim shorts were too tight, but I didn't own anything else clean that didn't smell faintly of milk or playground dirt. The silence was the worst kind of torture. It wasn't a restful quiet. It was the heavy quiet of 3 small people sleeping 12 feet away, ready to detonate into chaos the moment the sun touched the horizon. I shifted my focus back to the screen. A new order came through. A personalized tumbler. Ask me about my mortgage payments. I cracked a dry smile. Felt that one deep in my gut. I opened the design software. My mouse slipped. I cursed quietly. A low, guttural sound that barely disturbed the hum of the refrigerator. This business, Mom Grit Goods, was born 6 years ago, 2 months after Mark decided he needed space to find himself, and traded our cramped 2-bedroom rental for a studio apartment with a communal pool, and a job consulting that mostly involved drinking craft beer and posting pictures of his feet on various beaches. He called it his renaissance. I called it abandonment. I looked at the clock again. 3:55 a.m. That meant I had about 2 hours of uninterrupted work before Liam, age 4, boundary issues, came creeping in, demanding Cheerios and cartoons. I had to get these shirts printed. I pushed myself up and stumbled the 2 steps into the laundry room, which doubled as the production studio. The room was tight. The heat press, a large, heavy black slab of metal, dominated the space, radiating heat even when off. The smell in here was sharp. Hot vinyl, melted plastic, and a faint lingering aroma of fabric softener. I grabbed a stack of blank shirts, cheap, gray, bulk ordered, and slapped one onto the press bed. I laid the pre-cut vinyl transfer down, smoothing out the tiny wrinkles with my thumb. The heat press handle was enormous, requiring both hands and a heave of shoulder muscle to bring down. I slammed it shut. Shh! The sound was immense, immediate, and terrifyingly loud in the dead quiet of the house. I braced myself, praying it wouldn't wake anyone. I stared at the digital timer counting down from 45 seconds. 45 seconds of standing still, waiting, while the heat and pressure did their job. 45 seconds of absolute stillness where my mind could finally stretch its legs and wander toward dangerous territory. Mark. I hadn't thought about him intensely in weeks. I usually kept the memory locked in a mental box wrapped in duct tape, but the exhaustion made the seals weak. Last I saw on Facebook, I checked maybe twice a year, like inspecting a bad wound. He was paddleboarding off the coast of Florida, looking tanned and annoyingly fit. He had a woman with him, blonde, very thin. She was smiling that wide, effortless smile of someone who didn't know what a 3 a.m. utility cutoff notice felt like. He looked happy. He looked free. He was 36, living the life he said he couldn't live here, shackled by domestic burdens. Domestic burdens. That was Liam, Penny, and little Maya. I was 34, and I felt 80. My hands were permanently rough from handling cardboard boxes and peeling hot vinyl. My hair was tied back in a messy bun that hadn't seen a brush since yesterday afternoon. I was wearing an ancient college sweatshirt full of holes. The timer beeped, a shrill electronic mosquito cry. I lifted the press handle. Whoosh! A wave of scorching hot air blasted my face. I peeled the vinyl backing off the shirt, careful not to burn my fingertips. The image, "You got this, Mama," was set perfectly. 1 down, 66 to go. I grabbed the next shirt, black this time. I repeated the motion, the rhythmic, heavy slam of the press. I had to be meticulous. If the vinyl peeled or bubbled, I wasted a shirt and 10 minutes of labor. 10 minutes I didn't have. This business wasn't glamorous. It was sweat and burnt plastic. It was hoping people hated mornings enough to buy my products. But it was mine. When Mark left, the settlement was a joke. He had managed to claim his consulting income was too erratic to provide reliable support, and the court had bought it. I got $400 a month for 3 kids. $400. That barely covered the milk, let alone the rent on this depressing cinder block box of an apartment complex near the highway. I worked 3 jobs back then. The coffee shop morning shift, cleaning offices in the evening, and then mom grit goods from midnight to 4 a.m. I slept about 3.5 hours a night for 2 years straight. The coffee shop fired me because I kept falling asleep standing up. The cleaning gig got slow. Mom grit goods became the last thing holding the walls up. I started small. $10 for a digital print, $50 for a custom family portrait drawing. Then I saved up enough for the cheap vinyl cutter. Then the heat press. Every piece of equipment in this suffocating laundry room represented thousands of hours of lost sleep and swallowed pride. I slammed the press down again. Shh! I looked at the clock. 4:18 a.m. I had finished 8 shirts. Pathetic. I heard a small sound from the hallway. A creak. My stomach dropped. Please, God, no. I held my breath. It was the sound of the 4-year-old's small feet padding across the cheap laminate floor. Mama! The voice was small, sticky, and dangerously close to a whine. Liam, baby, go back to bed, I whispered harshly, keeping my voice low enough not to wake his sisters. He stood in the laundry room doorway, backlit by the blue glow of the kitchen screen. He was clutching a raggedy stuffed dinosaur and rubbing his eye with a fist. His hair stood up in wild tufts. I need water, he mumbled. You have water by your bed, sweetie. You do. Go get it. He didn't move. He just stared at the heat press. His presence was a physical drain, pulling energy right out of my already frayed nerves. I had 30 seconds left on the current shirt. I couldn't abandon the press. I need to lay on you, he demanded, in the way only a small child who has never faced true consequence can demand things at 4 a.m. I'm working, Bug. Big work. You can lay on the couch. Just be quiet. He let out a noise that was a precursor to a full-scale meltdown. A deep, chest-shaking sigh of grievance. The timer beeped. I lifted the press. I snatched the completed shirt and threw it onto the growing stack. Okay. Hurry. 5 minutes only, then you go back to bed. I scooped him up. He was heavy, dead weight, smelling faintly of stale sweat and baby shampoo. I carried him back to the kitchen counter where the computer light hummed. I sat back down on the hard chair, placing him sideways across my lap. His head immediately settled heavily into the soft part of my stomach. Now my workspace was completely compromised. I had to type one-handed, navigating the design software while supporting a 40-pound weight. I tried to upload a new batch of designs. I needed to schedule social media posts for the day. That was the other job. Marketing director, inventory specialist, CFO, and customer service rep. How do I sound engaging at 4:30 a.m. when I want to throw this laptop into traffic? I typed out a caption. Something about coffee and surviving Mondays. It felt fake, sugary, but it sold shirts. Liam started humming a tuneless song into my gut. My bladder was protesting. I desperately needed to pee, but if I moved, he would wake up completely and the night would be lost. I stared at the screen, clicking through shipping options, praying for a cheap, bulk rate. The numbers were so close. I needed to hit $10,000 in sales this quarter just to get ahead of the constant flood of bills. Right now, I was at $9,600. I looked at the counter, the messy stack of shirts, the piles of cardboard boxes waiting to be taped shut. The sheer physical volume of this hustle felt impossible sometimes. I remembered Mark's parting words, delivered over lukewarm takeout Chinese food, while the kids watched Paw Patrol in the next room. "You're too grounded, Britt. You'll never take a risk. You'll always be stuck here." He meant I wouldn't let go of the mortgage, or the kids, or the responsibility. He meant I wasn't fun enough to follow him into his reckless freedom. I had taken a risk. This was the risk. Betting every last penny and every hour of sleep on cheap cotton shirts and my own stubbornness. I kept clicking, the cursor moving slowly, deliberately. The weight of Liam was making my leg numb. My back ached, a deep, structural ache. 4:45 a.m. I managed to process 3 more large orders. My sales counter ticked up, $9,680. A notification popped up in the corner of the screen. An email from my hosting provider. A monthly report, usually garbage, ignored. But the subject line was weirdly specific. Unusual traffic spike detected. I frowned. Spam? I clicked it open, still typing tracking information with my right hand, left hand holding the sleeping child. The email explained, in technical jargon I barely understood, that traffic to Mom Grit Goods had increased by 1,400% in the last 4 hours. 1,400%. That's insane. I navigated quickly to Google Analytics. The graph was a solid vertical line pointing straight up, like a heart monitor spike. Thousands of active users. Where were they coming from? I clicked the referral link data. The top traffic source was The Daily Thread. I had never heard of The Daily Thread. Must be some small blog. I opened a new browser tab and searched it. It wasn't a small blog. It was a massive lifestyle magazine. Think Good Housekeeping meets BuzzFeed, but aimed at burnt-out millennials. They had 50 million unique visitors a month. I clicked the link. The first thing I saw was a huge glossy photo. Not of a t-shirt, not of a mug. It was a photo of my kitchen. Or rather, the corner of my laundry room I'd tried to make look vaguely rustic for a quick product shot last week. And next to it, a picture I had uploaded of myself, looking exhausted but smiling, holding up a shirt that read, "I run on caffeine and spite." The article title was enormous. Centered on the page, "Meet Brittany, the mom who built a multi-million-dollar brand from her laundry room while juggling 3 kids." I dropped the mouse. It hit the counter with a quiet thud. Multi-million-dollar? That was a lie. I was short $320 this quarter. I scrolled down, heart pounding violently against my ribs, disturbing Liam, who shifted slightly on my lap. The text was glowing, overwhelming. It detailed my whole backstory. The abandonment, the triple shifts, the 3 a.m. hustle. They had found my old rambling About Me page and turned it into a heroic narrative of grit and triumph. They called me the Queen of Mompreneurs. The comments were already flying in. Hundreds of them a minute. This is exactly what I needed to see. Buying everything right now. Support this queen. I just bought 10 shirts. Thank you for the inspiration. My phone, lying next to the Cheeto crumbs, suddenly started buzzing wildly. Notification after notification, sales alerts, order confirmations. Ding, 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 ding. It was relentless. It sounded like a slot machine hitting the jackpot repeatedly. I looked at the sales counter in my shop backend. It was updating live. 9,150, 9,110, $10 to $100. It broke the $10,000 mark in the span of 30 seconds. The fatigue vanished, replaced by a searing spike of adrenaline. My hands started shaking. I wasn't thinking about bills or exhaustion anymore. I was staring at the undeniable, undeniable proof that 6 years of working in the cold, greasy dark had finally, violently paid off. I was viral. My vision went blurry for a moment. I tightened my grip on Liam, inhaling the scent of his hair. I was still sitting on the hard chair, surrounded by the mess, the cold coffee, and the stale air. But everything had changed. The noise of the sales alerts was deafening. I kept staring at the magazine article, specifically at the photo they used of me. The exhaustion was clear around my eyes, but the smile was genuine. Then, I saw the footnote at the very bottom of the article, a line I hadn't noticed before. Brittany's ex-husband, Mark Slocum, currently works in digital strategy consulting in Miami, FL. They had name-dropped him. My phone, which was still screaming with sales notifications, suddenly buzzed with a different kind of alert. A text message. An unknown number. I hesitated. I shouldn't answer. It was 5:02 a.m. I clicked it open anyway. The message was simple, immediate, and utterly sickening. Subject: Hey, Britt. It's Mark. Just saw the article. Wow. Look at you. We should grab coffee and catch up. So proud of everything you built. I miss you guys. I looked down at Liam, warm and heavy on my lap, the consequence Mark had run from. I looked at the sales screen, watching the numbers climb past $15,000 in 2 minutes. The empire I built out of spite and cheap vinyl. Mark missed us. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. I stared at the message, the blue light reflecting in my wide, bloodshot eyes. I miss you guys. I reached up and slowly, deliberately typed a reply. I didn't think about the character limit or the professional tone. I typed only 3 words: go to hell. I hit send. Then the email notification pinged again, and this time, the number of new orders was so high the system lagged. The total sales figure flashed: $25,000. The sound of the baby, Maya, starting to cry from her crib, finally cut through the ringing in my ears. The sun was cracking over the horizon, casting a thin, pale orange strip across the kitchen floor. It was morning, and the chaos was just getting started. The ringing stopped. Not the phone. My ears. Maya was screaming now. Not the little sleepy fussing, but the full-lung, hungry, wet diaper. I am awake and I demand attention. Scream that rattled the dust off the mini blinds. I didn't move right away. My left hand still rested on the mouse pad, right where I had clicked send on the 2-word email to Kevin. Go to hell. I looked at the screen again. $25,000. It wasn't real money yet. It was promised money. Inventory I didn't have boxed. Shipping labels I hadn't printed. The thin slice of orange light across the linoleum grew wider, turning into a sickly yellow. 6 a.m. I'd been awake since midnight. My neck was a stiff, hot wire. I tried to stand up, but my knees locked. I smelled stale coffee and the dry paper dust from the shipping boxes piled in the corner. I was still wearing the same oversized gray college sweatshirt I'd slept in, the one with the frayed cuffs and the faint but permanent smell of breast milk. Okay, Maya. Mommy's coming, I croaked. My voice was sandpaper. I shuffled to the small bedroom where the crib was tucked beside my own bed. Maya's face was bright red, tears streaming into the folds of her neck. I picked her up. She was heavy, solid weight in my arms. The warmth spread into my chest, a small, selfish comfort in the wreckage of the night. Her crying didn't stop, but it changed register. Less panic, more complaint. I carried her out to the kitchen, kicking a stray pile of bubble wrap out of the way. The next hour was a blur of primal needs. Diaper change on the kitchen counter because the floor was gritty, the kettle whistling hot. Chloe, who was 10, trudged out first, rubbing sleep from her eyes, already asking if she could wear the new purple shirt that was still dirty in the hamper. Liam, 12, followed, grumpy, complaining about the brightness of the light and the smell of the coffee. You guys know the drill, I muttered, handing Liam a bowl of the cheap oat cereal. Quiet. Mommy has to print. I sat Maya in her high chair with a teething toy and went back to the computer. The $25,000 had grown. $31,000. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I ignored it. It rang again, and again, and again. I finally grabbed the burner phone, the one I used only for business calls, just as the screen lit up with an unfamiliar California area code. "Hello? Brittany?" a fast, high-pitched voice said. "Yeah, this is Brittany." "Oh my God. I'm Rachel. I'm with BuzzBlast, and we are totally obsessed with your product. We want to run a follow-up feature. Huge traffic. We can link directly to your site." I hung up. I knew that was stupid. That was exactly what had caused the $31,000 surge. But I couldn't handle the manic energy of a media person right now. I needed to focus on the numbers, the inventory, the boxes. The scale of the operation had exploded past the capacity of my dining room table. I had exactly 40 units of the best-selling item left. That meant 600 orders were pending, relying on the next batch of raw material arriving tomorrow. If it was late, I was dead. I looked at the clock. 6:45 a.m. School bus came at 7:30. "Liam, did you pack your lunch?" "No." "Chloe? Teeth brushed?" "Almost." Maya started fussing, swatting at the plastic toy. I scooped her up and settled her on my hip, then started shoving oatmeal, cheap plastic forks, and napkins into brown paper bags. My head pounded. The headache wasn't behind my eyes. It felt like a dull, heavy stone resting on the back of my skull, pushing my face forward. I hadn't eaten anything but the leftover crusts of Liam's toast from yesterday. I managed to get the two older kids out the door, yelling the usual list of warnings. "Don't forget your jacket. Don't talk to strangers. Text me when you get there." Silence. Just Maya gurgling and the faint hum of the computer fan. I went back to the emails. The first few hundred were orders. The next 100 were vendors, suppliers, and distributors suddenly very interested in my little company. And then there was Kevin. He didn't use email this time. He used Facebook Messenger. I hadn't checked Facebook in maybe 5 years, but the notification badge was huge. Kevin Daniels. "Brittany, I saw the article. I mean, wow. I always knew you had that drive, that sparkle. Listen, I need to apologize about earlier. I was out of line, but I saw the photo of the product. It looks amazing." Kevin Daniels. "I was thinking, now that things are booming, maybe you could use a business manager, someone to handle the finance side. I have experience, you know. I'm good with numbers. We could be a team again. For the kids." I scrolled down. He'd sent 5 more messages, each one longer, more professional sounding, using words like synergy and equity. He was trying to pivot from absent deadbeat ex to potential business partner. I closed the app without replying. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of it made my stomach turn. He was trying to monetize my exhaustion. He didn't want to see the long hours, the sticky floor, the bills I paid alone for 10 years. He only wanted the headline. I had to work. The orders wouldn't pack themselves. I spent the next 2 days in a state of hyper-exhaustion. The house, which was also the warehouse, was a disaster zone. The dining table was covered in postage scales and thermal printers. Every piece of carpet was buried under cardboard dust and packing peanuts. I hired the only person I could find immediately, Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly neighbor who used to babysit, agreeing to come in for 8 hours a day just to tape boxes shut. Mrs. Rodriguez, bless her heart, smelled faintly of mothballs and kept humming old Spanish folk songs while she meticulously taped every seam. She didn't ask questions about the volume or the chaos. She just packed. The noise level was insane. I had 3 phones now, the business burner, the personal line, and a new one for media inquiries only. They rang constantly. The delivery trucks came twice a day, slamming the heavy packages down. I hadn't slept for more than 3 hours straight in a week. I looked in the mirror one morning and saw a stranger. Hollow cheeks, dark circles the color of old bruises, and hair pulled back so tight it felt like my scalp was bleeding. The bank account was swelling, yes, but every dollar was already earmarked. Inventory prepayment, Mrs. Rodriguez's wages, a lawyer to look over the distribution agreements, and childcare for Maya, because I couldn't work with her strapped to my chest anymore. I signed the lease for a small, ugly industrial unit 3 towns over. It was concrete and cold, but it was not my house. It was business. I told Mrs. Rodriguez we were moving operations. She packed her tape gun and her dignity and followed me. The move took 3 frantic days. I had to pay a crew of college kids in pizza and cash to haul the mountain of boxes. The new space smelled faintly of mildew and old tires. But when I locked the door on my first night there, the silence was deafening. No crying baby, no ringing personal phone, just the hum of the fluorescent lights. 3 weeks later, the $25,000 had turned into $300,000 in gross revenue. The BuzzBlast article finally ran. It was glossy, ridiculous, and completely over the top. The headline read, "Mompreneur turns kitchen hustle into multi-million-dollar empire." They exaggerated the millions, but I let it go. The main photo was staged. They had me standing in the new, brightly lit warehouse space, looking thoughtful while holding one of my products. I was wearing a clean white t-shirt and jeans I had bought specifically for the shoot. I looked rested. I looked successful. I looked nothing like the exhausted woman who still woke up at 2 a.m. checking emails. The local news picked up the story, then the regional paper. I was recognized at the grocery store. A woman stopped me by the milk display and whispered, "You're the one from the paper. You're doing it, girl." I just nodded, too tired to manage a smile. The exposure was good for business, but terrible for my privacy. Liam came home from school one day looking pale. "Mom, why did Mr. Daniels call me?" My blood went cold. "Who? Mr. Daniels?" "Yeah, my teacher. He said there was a man waiting outside the gate who said he was my father. He wanted to talk to me about the newspaper article." I knelt down, gripping Liam's shoulders hard. "Did you talk to him?" Liam shook his head violently. "No, Mr. Daniels wouldn't let him. He said he had to go through you. Mark. He wasn't just texting. He was showing up. He was staking out the school. I called the lawyer. I changed the kids' contact information at school. I got a restraining order drafted, detailing 10 years of abandonment and the recent attempts at harassment. I didn't send it yet. I wanted him to see me first. I wanted him to see exactly what he missed, and exactly what he thought he could swoop in and steal. The magazine, Modern Entrepreneur, decided I was their cover story. They sent a photographer to the warehouse. They wanted the full Cinderella story. I agreed, on one condition. The interview had to take place at the new space, not my home. The day of the shoot, I had the warehouse meticulously cleaned. Mrs. Rodriguez was given the day off. I wore a tailored blazer, a ridiculous expense, and a pair of heels I hadn't worn since I left Kevin. The photographer positioned me by the largest pallet stack. The interviewer, a slick young woman named Erica, kept asking about the moment of inception and the support system. I kept my answers short. I needed money. I had kids. I worked. "And your husband? He must be so proud of you now," Erica chirped, adjusting her microphone. I smiled. A cold, brittle thing. "No husband? Just me." Just as Erica was asking about future investment strategies, my phone, the business line, buzzed. It was a text from the lawyer. They found him. "He's outside the warehouse. He insisted on coming by. Said he had a delivery for you." I felt a surge of pure, white-hot adrenaline. Not panic. Readiness. "Excuse me for 1 minute," I said to Erica. I walked toward the loading bay door, the sound of my heels echoing off the concrete floor. The lawyer was standing by the door, blocking the entry. Beside him, dressed in an ill-fitting suit that looked too expensive for his current lifestyle, was Kevin. He looked older. Not ruggedly older, but puffy, worn out. His hair was thinner. The smile he flashed when he saw me was the same charm-offensive smile that used to melt me 10 years ago. Now, it was just pathetic. He held a bouquet of long-stemmed roses wrapped in plastic, the kind of generic, desperate flowers you buy at the grocery store near the checkout. "Brittany! Look at you! You clean up good, huh?" he called out, trying to sound jovial. I walked right past the lawyer, stopping 2 feet from Kevin. The fluorescent light of the warehouse made his desperation stark. "What are you doing here, Kevin?" My voice was low, flat, and didn't shake at all. "I came to congratulate you, babe. Seriously, this is huge. I knew you had it in you. I brought these." He held out the sad flowers. I didn't take them. "You saw the article," I stated. "Yeah. I mean, everyone's talking about it. That's why I wanted to talk about the company. I have some ideas. We're family, right? We should share this success. Think of the kids, Britt. We could give them so much now." He took a step closer, trying to establish intimacy. The scent of cheap cologne hit me. I looked down at the roses, then up at his face. I didn't see the man I loved. I saw the man who traded my labor for his comfort. The man who let me shoulder the burden of 3 children so he could chase the myth of his own youth. "I told you to go to hell, Kevin," I said. He chuckled nervously. "Come on, Britt." That was the heat of the moment. "We're talking about real money now. Partnership." I slowly reached into the pocket of my blazer. I pulled out the folded, heavy paper I'd had the lawyer draft, the restraining order. I unfolded it and pressed it against the thorns on the roses, watching the plastic crinkle. "This is a temporary restraining order," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It details harassment, abandonment, and your recent attempt to contact my children through the school. You will be served officially if you do not leave this property immediately." His smile vanished. His face went white. "What? You can't be serious. I'm their father. You gave that title up 10 years ago," I countered. "This company? It's mine. Every box, every dime, every sleepless night. You don't own any of it. You don't get a partnership. You don't get access." He looked panicked, his eyes darting to the lawyer, then back to me, then finally past me, toward the sound of the camera shutter clicking repeatedly. Erica, the interviewer, was standing by the door, having recorded the entire interaction. Her eyes were wide. She knew she had gold. Kevin saw the camera. He suddenly looked small, exposed. "You're going to regret this, Brittany," he hissed, his voice dropping to a nasty register. "You can't cut me out. Not legally, not financially." I took the restraining order back. I looked at the roses one last time, a symbol of his desperate 11th-hour attempt at reconciliation that was really just an attempt at theft. I reached out, grabbed the stem of the flowers, and twisted. The heavy heads of the roses snapped cleanly off. They fell to the dusty concrete floor, bright red against the gray. I held the bare, thorny stem in my hand. I stepped forward, closing the distance between us, until I was inches from his face. He flinched away, catching the scent of my expensive perfume, the one I bought with my own money. "I already regret it enough, Kevin," I said. I turned my back on him. I didn't wait to see him leave. I walked straight past the lawyer, past the wide-eyed interviewer, and back toward the pallet stacks. "Erica," I called out, my voice loud and clear. "Ready for that shot? Let's talk about that distribution deal in Japan." I stood perfectly still, letting the photographer snap the perfect, confident cover photo. My heels hurt. My back ached. I could still smell Kevin's cheap cologne. I signed the final papers for the restraining order the next day. I never saw him again. I just saw the headlines and the quarterly reports.